Well, I guess we'll get started. I'm the last guy keeping you away from the rest of your day, the last day, the last conference discussion. But I'm pretty excited because this is a topic of interest for me that I think all of us would agree human capital is the best thing to be talking about right now. A little bit about myself. I've been in the auto business for 17 years. The first 5 years I was in the retail store selling cars, F&I management and sales management. Got on the other side of the desk for the last 12 years, been working with a company called Automotive Development Group out of Minneapolis. We're a consulting company. We help dealers generate more gross profit, sell more cars, protect CSI. And so today, talking about human capital, I want to talk about the next generation sales professional and what is going on out there in the auto space, because there's a couple of influencers out there that are creating this dynamic that we need to be aware of, which is, first and foremost, how people make buying decisions at the dealership. And so that's having a lot to do with what's happening at the stores and in your stores, and what's going to be the most important thing going forward is to you to understand how that impacts your overall revenue model. Also, the people that are getting into the car business, a lot different than before. And so we want to kind of dive down into that today and figure out what do we need to do to help ourselves not only impact the people that are coming in the stores, but also the people that are helping them create the buying activity. So recently there was a study that was done by Max Digital, what's the biggest challenge in auto dealers today, and nearly 80% of those dealers that were talked about it said turnover is the biggest problem. And the reason for that is, well, quite frankly, it's the lack of training and ineffective onboarding process and hiring processes that they have. So because of that, we want to drill down in terms of today, helping you understand what it is that you can do today differently going forward. I'm going to give you some tools to use. At the end, if you want to email me, I'll send you these tools because there's a lot of information. I'm going to kind of go fast, but at the bare minimum, and that's what we're going to talk about, is the ability to help you make hiring decisions, onboarding, and training. So another thing that they found is that when dealerships actually did exit interviews with the sales professionals, they said, hey, the reason why I'm leaving is because they're not training me enough. And we'll find out that the training efforts that we have at the dealership is lackluster at best, and how do we actually utilize the tools to help us be better trainers, or coaches, if you will. And then the other thing that we found is that 9 out of 10 said it's really hard to hire people today. We got low unemployment rates, and we have people that have never been in the car business. In fact, 66% of the people that they went in and talked to on this survey said that they're hiring people without automotive experience at all. Wow. And 62% no sales experience. So think about the fact that 62% of the people don't know how to sell something, and 66% don't know anything about the car business. And those are the people that are getting into the business. So how do we effectively manage that? What do we have to do? So to meet that challenge, we first have to understand, what is it about our guests that are coming into the store today? They don't want to be sold. They want to be able to make a buying decision. And so if you ask these dealers that were in the survey, they said that most of them are considering a change in their sales process, which is always fun to talk about, right? Especially if you're at the dealership. Hey, we're going to come up with a new sales process, and every salesperson is going to go, what? I already know how to do the sales process. But there's more to it, right? Because people want to have a consultative approach, right? They don't want to be, having people make friends with them or just show them a price. They actually want to have an expert that's going to help them make a buying decision. And because of that, a lot of dealerships are going towards that change. In fact, when you're giving your sales professional this ability to become an expert, they want to stay longer. So we'll talk about the new people coming into the business that are the younger people that say, hey, it's not about the money. We used to entice people, hey, come into the car business, you can make a lot of dough. Today's person that wants to sell cars, that's a younger person, they want to grow mentally. They want to be mentally challenged. So how do we get that mental challenge and actually continue to sell cars? Because we're car dealers, we got to sell cars. Glad you asked. So first of all, we're going to talk about hiring people. Quality people, right? What's the first step to doing that? What are you doing today in your dealership in terms of hiring people? Are you taking on just a huge risk by taking somebody else's, person that just quit? We got a lot of people that are, moving around from dealership to dealership. Are you just bringing that next person on? Or are you actually drilling down and hiring people based on your dealership culture, right? So we'll talk about that. Also, the onboarding the new employee. What are you doing today? I remember when I first got in the car business, and I was in the software business for 16 years prior to that. So I'll talk about dynamic, aggressive, competitive space. Going into the car business, they said, yeah, here's 7 tapes. Go on upstairs and take a look at the videos. I was up there for 5 hours. I came back downstairs and they said, nobody's ever been up there for 2 hours. You were there for 5. What is the deal? I'm like, oh, I can't take it anymore. I got too much product knowledge. Like, what do you want to do? Sell a car? Okay, go sell a car. That was my onboarding at the first day. So are you committed to a well-designed process, or are you just winging it? Because a lot of times what we find is that we have this brand new asset and we're not even ready. In fact, they show up at the dealership and what do they say? Oh man, I didn't know you were starting today. I got a few things to catch up on. Why don't you go talk to Jim? He'll get you started. Yeah, okay, you're good? Okay, see ya. And it's like, what just happened? You're telling your brand new, beautiful asset, right? It doesn't matter. You're just a number. And then what does that translate to your people that they actually help make a buying decision on? It doesn't matter if I'm here or not, right? So coaching and developing to win, are you really putting together a coaching plan? I just did a 2-day class in Chicago this week where we actually talked about helping people get out of their own way on this whole business of coaching people. It's not, hey, you're parking the cars in the wrong area, or your keys are in the wrong spot, or we got to continue to get driver's license, insurance cards. That's not training. Training is actually sitting down, walking through, and actually helping them understand where their needs are in the process that they're actually having to utilize to help people make a buying decision. And so are you creating the expert for your guests to be able to utilize? Because if that's what you end up with, you have a better experience at the end, which means you're going to retain those people that are going to help these folks that are buying cars, and more people are going to want to come in and actually buy cars from your dealership. Because we all know it's not about the vehicle. We all sell great vehicles, right? We got the name on the sign, we're open, we're ready for business, and what happens? They come in, they go through a jacked up experience, and what happens then? They either leave or they don't buy again from you, and they don't go out and profess that this is the best place to buy a car. So we're going to drill down with these, and I'm going to show you how the tools in each category can be utilized. And we're going to start out with the hiring people, okay? The first thing that I would invite you to consider is don't just start out like, hey, let's get an ad out there and start talking to people, right? Because your management team is not ready. You need to back up the bus and say, okay, so from a sales manager, a general manager, GSM, a finance manager, finance director, the service manager, all these people got to get in a room and they got to actually say, what's our dealership culture, right? Do we have any kinks in our culture? Do we want to create a newer, more aggressive approach, or do we want to be just like we are today? Because it's okay, but you need to recognize what that culture is, because you need to be able to plug in the person that you're bringing into your dealership and match the dealership culture. If you're not doing that, there's going to be this conflict, and your expectation is going to be here, and your new asset is going to be coming in like, what I don't really fit in, and then you're going to end up just going through more people, right? So using that dealership culture, helping you better understand what your dealership culture is before you start to hire people, and using your management team to define what it actually is. Pre-screening process. Right? I loved using a behavioral assessment, especially with new people that are coming into the car business. Yes, I like the fact that they have experience out there, that they actually can show that they've been through school or they've got a great job and they just decided to change careers. All that's great, but I really want to know what's their behavior in terms of their interpersonal skills, and how do they communicate with people, and what kind of problem solving do they have? What are those skills? Because that's what we're going to see when they come in and deal with our general population buying cars from us, right? And they're going to plug into our environment, and if that behavioral analysis doesn't help us understand who they are, we're back to just looking at what everybody else is looking at, right? Just look at a resume, and it's not a very good tool to use. These behavioral assessment tools there's several that are out there. We'll talk about a couple of them, but the one that I like the most is the ones you can do online. So you can send them an email, they can take the assessment, and you can, before they even come to the dealership to talk to you, you can better understand who these people are and how they would plug into your environment. Then, because you're going to be interviewing these folks when they get to the dealership, you should have a multiple interview strategy, right? Not just one guy. Hey, go, you know what, I'm kind of busy. We just go talk to this guy, and here's his resume, and see if you like him. And then that's all they see. They see one person, and there's no real, what is going on. So utilizing a team approach is going to help you better define who are these candidates that are coming to your dealership, and how would they be able to best fit our needs. And I got to have more heads looking at this person versus just myself, right? Especially if it's the dealer principal. How many of the folks that are actually running the store as a dealer principal on a day-to-day basis? They're the ones that can't make the decision sometimes. They can see where the decision could be made, but they can't make the exact decision because they're not always at the store, right? And then asking behavioral interview questions. Determine what their behaviors are and actually drill down to those behavioral questions, right? How do they think? How do they respond to pressure? How do they respond to working in a group setting? Because some of the things that are doing at the dealership have to be within a team environment, right? So we'll talk about that as well. And then I like to use this DATE concept, right? Which is, does the candidate have the right stuff? Do they have the desire level, right? The desire level, which is that high level expectation for themselves, and that they want to do great with a high level of expectation from the dealership. Remember, we're plugging them into what our expectations are. They have expectations too. And so if we can see the desire level, yes, I want to be a part of a bigger team, that would be beneficial to us. And the ability level means, can they actually do the job, right? Can we train and coach them? The bottom two are the ones that we're going to provide the individual. We're going to provide the training and the environment for them, but they have to bring the first two, right? So let's look at, before we start to talk about how we're going to hire these people, let's talk about who's actually at the store buying cars and who's probably on your team right now today. The first group is this baby boomers group. This is my group, also known as the me generation. There's 78 million of these people, and this is the second largest demographic out there buying cars. They've got over $3 trillion of disposable income every year to buy cars, and they can be brand loyal, but you have to have them buy into the brand loyalty aspect of it, and they're not very tech savvy. I've got an MIS degree, and I don't even use my MIS degree, right? I use it to turn on my computer, that's about it, but they're not tech-savvy people, right? They're just forced into using them. In fact, if I had a choice, I probably wouldn't even use my phone. It's just like so much of a pain, right? But 60% of all new cars are sold to this group. 60%. So can imagine, your 25-year-old going to talk to one of these folks and trying to help them make a buying decision. We got to be ready for these folks, right? And then this also is the most educated group out there. When I first started talking to my kids, I got a 25-year-old, I'm like, his name's AJ, I'm like, AJ, when I went to school, you had the fear of the world running over you. I mean, it wasn't like it is today where it's like, oh yeah, whatever you want to do, just, well, it'll all happen for you. We'll give you a trophy, it'll be good. You're coming along, you're a protected class. Yeah, for us, it was like, man, the world's going to go right past us, so we had to be educated. We had to know what we were going to do for a job. And so key drivers for these folks, right? They question everything. These folks question everything. They have an ambition, and they're very competitive, right? They live to work. Man, I can't tell you how many times I would talk to some of the younger generation folks. They do not live to work. We live to work, and we also buy now and pay later. We want the best deal, and we want convenience. That's this baby boomers, okay? Let's look at the next group. It's the Gen X, right? 38 to 53 years old, also known as the dot-com generation, 65 million. This is the third largest demographic that's out there. 82% of them own homes. 70% have kids. They are brand loyal, but you have to buy into their brandness, right? If they don't see that it's going to fit their needs within the brand loyalty, and that's even after the sale, they'll just move on to the next brand. They're always looking for a competitive deal, and they are technology literate. These folks grew up with technology, and so they seek a work-life balance because they got kids. Time with kids, their family, is the most important thing. And the key drivers for these folks, right, they have the highest percentage of divorce rate, right, for parents. I'm sorry, they're divorced parents. They also have the highest rate of single parents, right? Makes sense? Time sensitivity. These people do not want to be caught at a dealership. They don't just want to move in and move out from a time standpoint. They trust, but they verify, and they have a price sensitivity. What that means is these folks are more apt to buy based on the original price, like the transparent pricing that we talk about, that upfront pricing. These people are very much in tune with that. They research. I think these are the ones that are driving that 19 hours on the internet before you go to a dealership. I think that's where this is coming from, right? These people are online checking stuff out. And they're brand loyal, but they'll switch, right, if you don't keep up with the loyalty aspect. And then the last group are Gen Y, MILLENNIALS, and these are 20 to 37 years old, the next generation. This is the largest group out there, right? 79 million. 32% of these folks own homes because the rest of them are living at your house, right? In your basement, or they're renting, right? They drive fewer miles. I got a nephew who's 32. He's got his PhD. He's a nuclear physicist for Berkeley, California. He's the smartest kid I know. And he got his driver's license like 2 years ago. I was like, what? And Franklin, what are you doing? He's like, I ride my bike, take a bus, Uber. I mean, when Uber came out, this guy was like, I got a car. It's like, no, you don't. You're getting a ride. He's like, no, I don't need a car. So they drive fewer miles, and these folks also purchase online. 97% of them purchase stuff online. They're very tech savvy. These folks can fix anything. I'm always amazed. I got a degree with computer products, technology-wise. I thought I was pretty smart. But it's always so frustrating for me because everything is always changing so fast. These people are looking for that change. They're looking for, ooh, what's the cool thing? It's like, no, can I just have what it used to be? That's what I really want. These folks, work is what they do between the weekends. They don't live to work. The work is what they do between the weekends. So now think about, how do you plug these folks into your dealership when work is what they do between the weekends? So I got one dealership group that we deal with that I would tell you about is that they pay people based on production, not about the gross that they make, and they also pay them based on an hourly rate. So I'm from Minnesota, and if you're based on an hourly rate and it snows up there, what are they doing? No problem, I'm getting paid anyway, might as well go out and broom cars. It's like, this is crazy, yeah. Most salespeople kind of like calling sick or they don't want to be around when it's a snow day, right? These people are just like, well, we got to work and might as well get it handled, but they don't want to work a lot of hours. They want to work just about 40 and maybe a little bit less than that. Can we get the job done then? Yep. So time with friends is the most important thing for these folks, and because of that, you got to kind of gauge, so how am I going to actually utilize this? Maybe we need more salespeople on the show floor. Right? Maybe we need better elements of time so that they can manage what their expectations are, so they want to work, even though they're not going to work a lot of hours. So now that we know a little bit about the demographics of the people that are coming into your store that we'll be dealing with and the people that are actually selling at your store, let's talk about how do we actually utilize that skill set of a pre-screening process. And so there's this one that I like to use, which is it measures 4 things. First of all, it measures dominance, right? Your dominance was your ability to influence other people or events. It measures your extroversion, right? So giving the understanding of what their social drive is, are they extroverted or are they introverted? And then this other factor, which is patience, which is looking at their ability to be intense or the tension and pace for that individual. And then lastly is the formality. Can they follow rules or are they rule breakers, right? If you want to do a sales process, I've got one dealership that we put together what's called bubble technology, where we've got all of our processes that we do, but it doesn't matter what order you do them, as long as you complete all of them. Because if you complete all the processes, then the customer will buy, right? So if you have that group of people that are not really rule followers, they can't follow, a linear path where you do this, then you do this, then you do this, and you plug that in, and this person's, on the left side of the informality type, they're not going to plug in very well to your culture and your organization, right? It's easy to see this up on the board, but you have to utilize this, you have to actually go get certification. It's like a day-long certification, and the next day you'll actually utilize how you understand and how it works together, but it's not easy. So I would just invite you to consider looking at some of the ones that are out there and kind of get plugged in as to what would work best for your dealership. But having a pre-screening tool works awesome. So interview and your evaluation feedback form. So I suggested earlier that you should use multiple people in your dealerships to actually talk to people, multiple interviews. So how would you be able to disseminate that information between some folks? You have to have a form, and it should be a rating system so that you can actually say, hey, how do they look? How do they walk? How do they talk? What's their current job? What's their previous job, right? Who did reference checks? But most importantly, it's questions to reveal, their integrity, their honesty, their trustworthiness, right? Their personality, their temperament, their ability to work with others, and the creativeness, right? Are they creative thinkers? Can they solve problems? Can they work in teams? These types of questions. These are questions where if we had a feedback form, right, that looked like this, right, where we actually drilled down and we said, hey, when we met with them, there's like 6 things that I'm looking at just for first impressions. There's 7 things that I'm looking for from their work history. Another 7 things from a previous work history. And then here's all the questions to reveal, their honesty and their integrity, right? I got a whole bunch of questions that I could ask. And I can actually kind of talk with the candidate and say, hey, it's great that you're here and it's great that you're well prepared, but I don't want to hear a canned speech. I don't want to just look at a resume and read off what they've already done. I want to actually ask them questions that will help me understand whether or not they're going to be able to perform in my dealership and actually work as a team and have that behavioral already established so I understand who this person is. So next I want to talk about interview questions, because this is a really important aspect of the behavioral end of it, because a lot of times these are the questions that we're asking our candidates, right? Tell me about your current job. Tell me about your current manager. What's your greatest challenge, right? Why are you leaving your current job? What are some of your short and long-term goals? What are your hobbies? Do you have any questions for me? I mean, all these questions that we used to say, these are the things that are going to help us better understand who these folks are. These are the common interview questions that we want to get away from. It's good that we got a few of them. It's almost like rapport building, right? It's like, so can you talk? Can you walk? Can you do your thing? How about if we ask questions that are going to be more towards behavioral, the right questions, I call them. Questions to review your integrity and your honesty and your ability to be trustworthy, right? If you asked if you asked an individual, what would you do if somebody were to do something unethical? What would you do? I mean, they probably just look at you like, oh, where did that question come from, right? So they put it on the spot. If you saw a coworker doing something dishonest, would you tell your boss, or what would you do, right? How about what kind of environment do you like to work in? What kind of environment do I like to work in? I like to work in a happy environment. How they answer that question is going to tell you what's the thing that's going to make them most excited about being at your dealership. And have you ever had a chance to resolve a problem by working with others? Or what happens when you get out there and you actually have a problem? Can you work with others to solve that problem? And see what they say, right? The other things about creativity and creative thinking, right? Describe a situation when you worked under pressure or met deadlines. How many times have we put people under pressure in the car business? Every month. Congratulations, you started at 0 every month. And see how many you get, right? How will they respond to that, right? And then maybe another question you could ask is, what type of problem solving, or when's the last time you had a problem, and what did you do when you had that problem? How did you solve that problem? And what was it about that problem that made you feel good about the resolution to the problem? These are all behavioral questions that will help reveal what they're actually going to do at your store versus these other questions, right, which are just the common questions that don't give you any insight as to how they will respond to your dealership culture and working as a team. So, moving right along, successful onboarding tools, okay? So, again, we got to stop and we got to figure out what are the things that we're doing at the dealership from a management style. Are we more proactive in terms of our style of management, or are we reactive, or are we somewhere in between, right? Because a lot of times we don't really know what that is, and that creates a conflict right from the get-go. So I want to show you something that we can do on that. Then onboarding checklist, right? Actually having a dedicated process that says, okay, so here's what we're going to do the first day, here's what we're going to do for the next 10 days, the next 2 weeks, and 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days. What this does is it gives your new relationship a guide. And they then can say, okay, so I'm progressing, I'm starting to learn more, I'm starting to take on more skill sets that I want to be able to do better, versus how many cars can you sell and when can you start, right? And then there's your desk, and congratulations, we'll be over there waiting for you to start producing. Yeah, so again, we'll talk about what that looks like. Setting expectations and goals, right? I can't tell you how much I want people to recognize that setting an expectation, having goals to meet those goals, and actually working with them to show them how to do it. If they've never been in the car business, they don't know I got to talk to 60 people just to sell 20 cars on a 30% closing ratio. They're like, well, what'd you just say? They don't have no idea. Where do those 60 people come from? Well, they come from the door, right? They come in the front door. No, they come from the service drive. They come from people that are coming off lease. They're coming from our internet leads, from the phone ups, from people that are orphaned owners. Orphaned owners, what are those? You know, they don't know. So we have to help them set the expectations so that they can guide themselves and have accountability from day one. Then there's this thing called a buddy program. We implemented this at a bunch of our dealerships, which is taking your assets that you have at the dealership and say, you know what, we got some great people that are helping other people assimilate to the dealership. When they come on board, they've got a lot of questions. And so how do we get these people to kind of hook up with some other folks to help them, guide them through the process of understanding what to do at your dealership? And that's the buddy program, so we'll drill down to that. So let's first look at this management style, right? So consider this, right? If you have this style, this reactive style, you're defending your current results, right? You rationalize why your expectations are not practical at the dealership. You may lack a formal plan, lack of accountability, I see a lot. And then you're defending the underperforming people, right? Well, we can't really get rid of them because we don't have anybody to replace them. So then we just defend them, we just kind of drag them with, and they just kind of muddy up the water for all the rest of us at the dealership. And then we just kind of wish business would get better, right? I see that, but then most commonly I see you set high expectations, you have limited communication of those expectations. What I mean by that is the dealer sets the expectation, they drive it down to the management team, and then somehow or another it filters into the people that are actually working on the sales floor. Yeah, and so you have regular reporting, which is a good idea. You put a plan in place. You establish compensation plans based on the fact that we think we're motivating people, right? But does it actually motivate them? And then you basically leave themselves up to figuring out how it's going to go. You know, if you don't like the process, you figure it out, right? And it's like, what is going on? I have a friend who's at a Mercedes store where all she says is, I can't sell more cars because our processes are all jacked up. And I'm like, what is your dealer doing about it? Nothing. They just say, just figure it out. Because most times the dealer doesn't know that they even have a management style. They're like, well, we have a bunch of people that are really smart and they work there, but they haven't literally sat down and said, hey, how do we address our style of management? How do we get more attuned with the people that are working at the dealership, helping them become better themselves because we're helping ourselves as well. I talked to a dealership group recently out in Denver, and they said, hey, what we're going to do is, and they did this 9 years ago, what we're going to do is if somebody wants to be a manager, they have to go run the training department for 6 months to a year. Then we'll make them a manager. Because if they are coming from the sales floor, right? Normally we take a salesperson that's, super aggressive, super assertive, they're doing great results, and we think, well, you know what, we should make them a manager. Maybe we make them a floor manager or a new car manager, give them some more responsibility, and then just kind of throw them into the fray. Because they can help other people, right? It's like this dealership group said, no. What we're going to do is they're going to actually go be the trainers for the group, and they're going to do that for 6 months or a year, and then they can be a sales manager. I thought that was really kind of interesting the way they thought about that, because what they're saying is the people that are actually going to be training the people at the store, they better be able to show us that they can do that. Otherwise, they can't be the management team, because things are changing now, right? Managers are not just desking deals. They have to grow their business internally with the people that are there to help make buying decisions, creating experts. So those folks found themselves here, right? They set high expectations. They communicated expectations to everyone. They put a plan in place, including training, right, and coaching. They put a daily tracking accountability in place. When I worked at a Toyota store up in the Twin Cities as a finance manager, every day we had to provide the general manager and the owner, here's what the results are for the day. Before we left, here's the results for the day. And so if we sold 20 cars and we only delivered 16, here's the 4 that we're still working on. And the next day, they better be on that list, right? Close the sale. But that daily tracking and accountability is super important, because it then gives me the idea, if I'm the person working there, that I am a piece to the bigger puzzle, which is I want to help people make buying decisions, but also I'm part of a team. And establishing the compensation plans that rewards performance. Obviously, if you have a pay plan today and you're wanting to modify that pay plan, modify it in the basis of what's going to actually improve your results versus improve your bottom line. And there's a difference, right? Anybody can improve the bottom line, but improving your results through a pay plan takes a little bit more, right? Because you're actually motivating people to do more, which then improves your overall aspect, not just the bottom line by cutting somebody's pay plan. And then working with your management team to remove all obstacles for success. Can't tell you how important that is, because it's a mindset, right? It's a mindset of, if the dealer says, hey, what are the challenges? Do I meet with my management team and say, what are your challenges? What are the things that we need to improve upon? What do I need to do for you so that I can help remove any obstacle that's out there? The first time you hear this from a dealer or from a manager as a sales professional, you're like, you're going to make sure that I don't have any obstacles? Yeah, what do you need? Just tell me what you need, right? I had one manager say to a guy, what do you need? He goes, I need a car that I can drive for like the next week. Okay, take a car. Because his mind wasn't at his game, because he didn't have a car. He was bumming rides to get to the dealership. The manager's like, what's going on in your world? What's happening? He's like, I just need a car for like a week. Okay, we'll just handle it. Now, can you get back to doing your great job? Some of the things we just don't even think about, because we're so far into not worried about what our style of management is. We're worried about what? Just selling cars. And so we got to take a little bit step back and think about how this is affecting our inside sales professional. So, onboarding checklist, right? I don't think you can see this, but there's activities that we're going to do, and we're going to monitor those activities, and we're going to give these activities a status, right? Jim's at this point in the road to a sale. We've completed all these activities. These are the things that we need to work on. We've got notes in these activities. We've got people that are responsible to helping develop this individual. And it's actually tracked and measured so that everybody that's involved in helping this person assimilate to the dealership is on board, and it's written out and it's defined, right? First day, first week, the second week, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. All of this is laid out so that, number one, everybody in the management team knows what's going on, even the dealer principal, and the fact that the individual that's coming on board knows that, okay, these are the things that we're going to do, so that if I get ahead of myself, I can go, wow, I'm really progressing, or we can say, well, we need to slow down so we maximize the potential for what this activity is all about. So then the next thing I want to talk about is setting the sales goals and objectives, right? So we developed a game plan where it talks about, hey, where are the dealership numbers coming from as an individual, and set up those numbers so that the individual knows, hey, okay, so I'm going to do 20 cold calls, or I'm going to do this many orphan owners, or I'm going to go out to the dealership and actually talk to people when they come in the store. I can do fresh ups. I'm on the desk, right? How many times have you had a salesperson sitting at the desk watching how a new deal happens as a brand new employee? I mean, people don't even think about it. But the thing is that those goals and objectives have to start with the manager working with the sales professional, saying, okay, so how much money do you want to make? How many cars do we need to sell? Where does this come from? And then having a daily huddle with the manager so that it doesn't go, a week at a time, and it's like, we check in, well, how are we doing, right? Yesterday you were supposed to talk to 4 people, you only talked to 2 people, right? And then the next thing is working the pay plan. Can't tell you how much you have to be able to work your pay plan. Most of our dealerships that we deal with have a pay plan that's a lot easier to understand when we first started working with them, because it's almost complicated. It's like you have to go to the accounting clerk and say, how much am I getting paid on this deal? Right? So if you work with the pay plan and roll it back up to the numbers that are actually being provided to, getting to that sale, then they can actually go, okay, so if I do this, I can actually get to the pay plan that I want, which is getting me the check. Salesperson accountability from day one, we talked about that. And again, the next piece is this buddy program. So the buddy program, right, because the person's coming in has got a bunch of questions, it provides advice and guidance for people, right? It also acts as a sounding board. How many times have you had a brand new person ask you 1,000 questions over and over? They're asking you these questions. Instead of doing it with a manager, we can actually have them work with a buddy that will help act as a sounding board. These are the things that are important. These are the things that are not important, right? Offer encouragement, and then have a formal commitment with these folks, right? It's not just for the next couple weeks. It's actually maybe a 6-month or even a year commitment to be their buddy, right? So how do you find these people, right? They're at your dealership. These people know the culture of the dealership. They're not a manager, right? They're accessible from a time standpoint, right? So they're available to the new employee, right? They're a solid performer. We don't want somebody that's just an okay performer. We want strong communication skills, and we want to exemplify the dealership's values, because those are the values that are going to get transferred to that next person, right? We don't want to have somebody that's got a jacked up deal and say, well, yeah, sometimes we do that, sometimes we don't. But the other thing is that they have to be trusted from everybody else too, right? Well regarded, right? They have patience, they have empathy for the individual. I know how you feel. This is how I felt when I first started. That kind of thing, where it's really helping them develop a skill set on the buddy program. All right, so then the last piece that I want to talk to you about is the coaching tools, right? The Road to a Sale evaluation form. This is something that we put together at my company, where we actually said we need to create experts in our Road to a Sale. And it doesn't matter, because we're a consulting company, what the Road to a Sale is at a dealership, because we all have the same big picture, right? How do we make that buying decision, helping guests make that buying decision? Then we'll talk about the goals and objectives, and then we'll talk about planting seeds, which is establishing an expert to working with your guest, helping them make a buying decision. So the first piece is that Road to a Sale evaluation form, right? So it's very, very specific. It's almost like the interview form, where you have a lot of detail, but it really says we're going to look at all steps of the sales process. We're going to evaluate this. In fact, I just gave this to a 5-store group up in Chicago, where they said, hey, first we're going to have the sales professional fill it out and let us know where they think their head's at. Then we're going to have the sales manager fill it out. Then we're going to get together and we're going to actually do the activity, right? We're going to actually talk about first impressions. We're going to talk about how do we ask the right questions. We're going to make a true connection, having a good needs analysis. We're going to actually know about our product, right? And product knowledge is not only the vehicles that they're selling, but also the products that you're selling at your dealership, which includes the finance products. Not that they're selling them, but they're planting the seeds along the way, right? And then establishing credibility, because otherwise we're just, selling off a price. And then educating the guest to make an informed decision. This is our proactive approach that we use, which is helping people make buying decisions based on what's in it for them. and then asking for the sale and overcoming objections. So the sales manager would look at these activities within your sales process. They would rate them based on, are they an up-and-comer, or are they a proficient expert, or are they like over the top, we should write a song about them. These are the things that we want to know from an individual's, development set, and actually drilling down to that and using it with them to develop what they need to do in terms of coaching and training. How many times have you taken a group of people, put them in a room and said, okay, for the next hour, we're just going to talk about this subject. And 90% of those people are doing great at it, right? What we need to do is we need to get back to doing 15-minute exercises. Think about this. If you did 15 minutes of training every day at your dealership on one aspect of the road to a sale, that translates into 5 hours of training in a month, given the fact that you do 15 minutes a day. Now, the things that we know that work best on that 15 minutes a day is not in the middle of the day. It's at the beginning of their shift, so that they mentally can say, okay, so every time I come to the dealership, I'm going to get 15 minutes of dedicated, coaching, and then I can get on with my day. I can go sell cars. It's a big change in terms of how people approach that, but utilizing this form will help define where do I need to help my people. And then the last thing is this planting seeds. Planting seeds. Can't tell you how much people that are in the car business, that are coming in, that have never been in the car business, that are young, that can actually say, okay, if I can get a skill set that there's 6 areas where I can actually help people make decisions, give them advantages to wanting to do business with me, starting with a proper meet and greet, defining how I'm different than everybody else out there, going through a great needs analysis, getting truly connected to the buyer, helping them make a buying decision, and then a tour of the vehicle, right? Not a test drive, but a tour of the vehicle, helping them make a decision based on what it is that they're looking for. And then the trade appraisal numbers. How many times have we said, hey, the trade appraisal numbers are based on the criteria based on market potential, not that we're putting a number on their car, and helping them understand how to present those numbers. And then before we ask them to buy, doing a service drive walk, because the customer right now, your guest, is buying the entire relationship with the dealership, not just the car, right? So having the guest see that there's a consultative approach and that they're working with an expert who gives them advantages is money in the bank, right? And so drilling down to those different things that you can do with your inside professional and helping them not only get the right approach when you first interviewed them, give them the idea that they're a great person to come in to work with us, and we're really super excited, and we're going to give them all the training and all the coaching, helping them through developing what their sales goals are, and then finally showing them what do they need to do, what do they need to say, right? How can they actually maximize their potential so that they can be an expert in helping customers make buying decisions? Now you've got something where they want to stay, they want to grow, they want to develop, and they can be productive right from the start. So that's my presentation. What questions might you have? Any questions at all? So don't all start at once. If you drop me an email to M. Ekhoff at ADG Today, any and all forms I'll send to you. I'll send them to you in a PDF. I'll send the goal tracker is an Excel, and you'll notice that there will be input areas where you can put numbers in, and then it'll spit out what do they need to do to maximize that. If you want to just drop me an email, I'll be more than happy to send you all that. Yep, adgtoday.com. And if you want to, yes, and if you want to further that conversation about planting seeds, I've got a 6-page document on the planting seeds, just how you go about making a differentiation through planting seeds and helping them make a buying decision, not only with the core products, service contract, gap, and environmental, the ancillary products as well, and how you would differentiate the dealership. So if you ask for that, I would more than happy send you that as well. Yes?
I was going to ask on your onboarding checklist.
Yes.
Is there the housekeeping stuff, the compliance
Oh,
thing
yeah.
as well?
Yep. Most dealerships, when they talk about an onboarding process, it's about the HR stuff, right? It's like, do we have an email address? Do we have business cards ordered? What would it be if, yeah, it's like, are you serious? I mean, all that stuff, we have to do that, but those are not the activities that are going to maximize the potential for somebody that wants to come on board and be part of a team and be seen as, wow, you're not only taking an initiative to be ready, but you really want me on your team and you're helping me develop a skill that I can use. Did I answer your question? Yes? I don't have that built into our process, but we use the behavioral analysis just to understand what their behavior patterns are. But further on that, we would use another agency to help us define that, but we don't do that now. Did I answer your question? Okay. What's that? Oh. Oh. There's companies out there that do that activity, but we don't do that ourselves. Yep. Well, thanks for taking the time to sit and listen to me go on. All right.